Like and subscribe for endless entertainment.
In a world where humans have turned monsters into workers without pay, we find Flio being the only one to treat them with the respect they deserve. RMC tries to pay the goblin, but he refuses because servants doesn't normally make money from their jobs. However, after Flio insists that the gremlin takes it as a gift, they all begin celebrating for the little kindness that he has shown them. RMC notices that his body is suddenly glowing as he is abducted to another world as its 198th hero summon attempt. Flio is confused about what happened to him, so the kidnappers explain that their world is under threat from the Dark Lord, which forces them to spirit away random people to this land in hopes that they will solve all their problems. A mink comes over to him and reveals that when someone is taken from another world, they're reverted back to level 1 but are given a divine blessing in exchange. The status window shows that Flio's stats are absolute trash and the gods didn't even bother to give him a special power, while another person has all his abilities maxed out to everyone's surprise and astonishment. They take him to meet with the king immediately, where he is proclaimed the guardian of this world, and after the celebrations Flio meets with the king, where he is told that there is no way to go back home, but they will give him land in a faraway forest so he can live out the remainder of his life out of their sight. RMC is then gently thrown inside a carriage to start his journey towards his new home. He asks the driver if he's a worker without pay, but the lizard tells him that he is not, since in this world no one is forced into servitude and everyone is treated equally. But when Flio starts asking questions about the forest he's being sent to, the driver decides to lock him inside. They travel for 20 days together through this vast land until Flio arrives at the place that he is to call his new home. The lizard man gives RMC an inventory bag with gifts from the king while warning him that the Dark Lord's monsters have taken over the forest, so he shouldn't stay here if he hopes to survive long, before leaving to head back to the capital. Flio looks inside the sack to find many items inside and draws a cheaply made body divider. Some slimes suddenly volunteer to be his first victims in this new world, which also proves how crappy the sword was made. RMC levels up and gains access to his protagonist powers, which gives him infinite points in all of his stats along with unlimited knowledge of any magic he encounters. A voice begins speaking to him that warns of spells inside his bag that will lure all monsters to his location, and RMC finally realizes that the king was trying to give him a new home in the afterlife. The voice cleanses the sack, then the fool still attempts to wander inside the forest, when thankfully another alarm goes off to explain that the woodland is contaminated with demonic aura, which would instantly make anyone who enters a hashtag. Flio decides to cleanse the forest and unleashes a spell to send everything inside the woodland into the shadow realm. Then RMC immediately gets jump scared by pop-up screens until he reaches level 367, so he decides to turn off the notifications before looking over to see that his mana has now been fully recovered. Flio unlocks common sense to realize that he can't live in the forest because the Demon Lord's army is too close and he shouldn't go to the towns since the king wants to isekai him again, but the voice comes in clutch to recommend him pulling a mystique to change his form. Flio turns himself into a trap which has an entire bakery in the back, and after realizing that every sane human will want a piece of his cake, RMC wisely decides to disguise himself as a man instead. Flio teleports all the way back to the royal capital, and after realizing that he can do almost anything, our overpowered protagonist tries to return to his own world but finds that he's unable to do so. Flio makes his way to the guild house where he meets with a waifu elf and officially registers as an adventurer for their organization. He goes over to choose his first job when he notices the little one asking if anyone is willing to take her to the forest so she can get back to her family, but everyone refuses because the Dark Lord has a base near that location and leaves the child on her own. Flio decides that he will help the little one return to her parents and says he will teleport them there, leaving everyone who heard him in complete shock. A royal knight accuses him of lying about being able to use such powerful magic, and her party wonders if he's Drake in disguise or just another successful influencer, but Flio says that he can prove that he's telling the truth, and they take him to an alleyway. Then our broken MC effortlessly transports all of them to the forest, where all the knights bow to him to apologize for their mistake. The little one begins freaking out because she doesn't sense any demonic aura inside the jungle, and the waifus start drawing all their weapons to fight against her. Balarasa explains that the guild has gotten reports of a suspicious girl luring guides to the forest who were never heard from again. Fenris drops the act of a little one worrying about her family to reveal her true form as one of the demons serving under the Dark Lord, who was tasked by her brother to carry back food for the army. She uses her conqueror's hockey to bring all of the royal knights to their knees, then prepares to deep-throat them, but Flio saves Balarasa from a swallowing session that she would not enjoy. Then our 100 IQ MC uses teleportation magic to return all the waifus to the royal capital while staying behind to face the monster alone. Flio decides that he will use every spell that he has against Fenris. He puts up a wall to block the tail whip before giving the demon a well-earned blow job. The wolf Flash steps behind him, but Flio uses gravity magic so the doggy can have an intimate moment with the floor to bring this fight to an end. The voice recommends that our overpowered MC make the demon his worker without pay, but he refuses because people being servants against their will was a poison in his old world that he will never bring into this land where everyone is free. Fenris tries her best to escape from her gravity chamber and eventually gives up when she runs out of mana. She begs Flio to end her suffering, but he chooses to release the demon who cancelled countless other adventures' subscription to life, since he finds the act of taking a life to also be a deed that he can't commit. Fenris transforms into her waifu form, and Flio tells the demon that if she stops putting humans on t-shirts, then he will allow her to go free. But before she can answer, our MC finds that the furry has went into sleep mode because she exhausted herself during their fight. A few hours later, we find Flio looking through all the magic spells he gained when Fenris finally awakens from her coma. The furry thanks our MC for healing her while she slept, before getting in the good girl position to tell Flio that from this point onwards she will be his servant to do with as he pleases. He quickly refuses her kind offer, so Fenris hits him with the cute girl Riz, but not even the great horny can change the mind of our alpha. Seeing no other choice, the furry uses the forbidden self-harm Riz, and Flio finally agrees to allow her to follow him, which brings great joy to our waifu. Flio tells Fenris about everything that happened to him and reveals his true form, then says that he has nowhere to call home, and our waifu promises to live the rest of her days by his side no matter who his enemies may be. We go over to the royal capital and find that the first princess is arguing with her father about banishing Flio into the woodlands to become demon food, though the king seems not to care. A messenger interrupts the fight to tell them that someone has used supreme holy magic on the forest to cleanse all the demons camped there, and both the royals are stunned by the implications. The hero sets out on a journey with an entire army to destroy the Dark Lord. In the night, he returns to the castle and complains that when the soldiers saw the demons, they all started to run away, so he was forced to use his powers to protect them rather than fighting. But after he leaves the room, it's revealed that even though the hero was the most powerful fighter among them, he stayed far away from the battle and used the soldiers as a distraction to flee when defeat seemed certain. The hero walks down the corridor while wondering why no matter how much he levels up, none of his stats seems to increase in the slightest, as a servant walks over to distract him from his problems, and he decides to spend the rest of the night playing swords and shoes with her. At the Dark Lord's castle, we find a legendary cat girl telling her master that the purification magic that wiped out his army was cast by one person. Then he tasks her to go into the human territory and return with the mage who could accomplish such a powerful spell on his own. The next day, our party travels through the market where the cabbage man mistakes them for being a married couple, and they decide that it would be a nice cover to explain why they're traveling together. However, Fenris decides to act as his wife forever. Over at the guild house, our waifu officially gets registered as an adventurer, when the well-endowed elf suddenly makes an urgent request asking all hunters available to face the horde of monsters that the hero failed to take down. Flio decides to not choose this mission because the royal army failed to defeat them, but Fenris says that she will take them down all by herself to prove that Flio is the strongest human in this world. Our duo teleports to the location where they find a house that the guild lends to adventurers. They hear fighting in the distance and rush over to find the party of waifu knights struggling to hold off a group of Ursurings. The muscle mommy gets tossed to the floor, but before it can give her a hard-pounding, Flio casts Thunderbolt to give them a shocking surprise, while Fenris scores an air takedown to bring this fight to an end. The party of baddies thanks our duo for their help, and Flio introduces Fenris as his traveling companion, which puts her in a very good mood to be attacked by another enemy as she puts the fear of God into the Ursaluna and its feigns immediately to escape a trip to the afterlife. Fenris realizes that it surrenders to her, and after getting hit with the cute bear wrist, she convinces Flio that they should take it in to use as a pet. RMC uses magic to seal its power, then transform the creature into an adorable bunny rabbit that they can carry around on their journey. They return to the adventurer's house where all of the royal knights introduce themselves to our duo, and reveal that in the recent battle against the Dark Lord's army, many of the soldiers got an all-expense-paid ticket to the gates of heaven, and the hero refuses to fight until he finds warriors that can be trusted, so the king has announced that all knights should prove their worth by defeating a Ursaring. They admit that at this point they cannot win a fight against the monsters, but asks Flio to train them to become stronger. Realizing that Fenris is getting territorial, Flio tells them that she's his wife and they just want to live alone. Our waifu says that as the leader of their pack it is his job to train them, and after giving it some thought, Flio tells the royal knights that he will try his best. Then Fenris points out that the party of baddies can take the rest of the rooms in the house since she and her husband will only be using one. In the night, Flio gets ready to go to bed, but Fenris wants to perform the baby-making spell. However, our MCC blocks himself by convincing her to wait until they know each other better. The next day we find our duo attempting to train the party of waifus so they can work together to take down a monster, but the women soon start running like track stars so it doesn't catch them. Everyone heads back to the house where Fenris decides to make dinner, and it's revealed that the earlier monster did not get spared by our party. Flio tells her that the food is uncooked, however our waifu is confused because she's used to getting raw meat, but Balarasa comes in clutch to make them a proper meal, which forces everyone who tastes it to climax from a foodgasm that shakes them to their core. They go to the guild hall to turn in some loot boxes while leaving everybody who sees it in total shock. Fenris tells Flio that she'll be going into the city to deal with some private matters as a guild representative approaches to invite RMC inside his office. The furry says that Flio achievements are the best that they have ever seen, and his street cred has reached so far that even the king wants to offer him a spot in the Royal Knights to fight against the Dark Lord, though RMC refuses because he doesn't have any problems with demons, along with the little fact that the king tried to make him past tense. Meanwhile, Fenris attends a cooking class in an attempt to surpass all the other waifus, and she fails at first, but with time our furry quickly improves until she can now make a meal that will make lips quiver. At the castle, we find the hero living our dream as he hears about the number of monsters that Flio have been bringing into the guild, and the lucky bastard decides that he will make RMC his right-hand man. Fenris and Flio meet back up at the guild house with our waifu looking like she's been playing the Elder Ring DLC. Then they return home to find some soldiers requesting that RMC join the fight against the Demon King, and he sends them away disappointed. But Flio notices that the muscle mommy has been impregnating the field with her seeds, while Fenris decides that it's time for the archers to start hunting down innocent creatures. RMC gives the mage a ring to boost her mana capacity, and the furry kindly persuades her to put it on the correct finger before going over to help the damsel in distress before she can lure Flio into her web. Meanwhile, the legendary cat girl stalks them from the shadows. They return home to eat a meal cooked by our waifu, and she proves that practice makes perfect as the furry serves food that would make Gordon Ramsay proud. Fenris goes outside to invite their guests to dinner, where our furry tells the curvaceous catgirl that she is now happily married to Flio and have left her life in the Dark Lord's army behind. The demon tries to look up RMC's information, but he has already installed a VPN, so she asks what happened to the soldiers that was in the forest, and Flio explains that he was the one who cast the purification magic. Then the skimpy catgirl begins freaking out because Fenris' brother was one of the Dark Lord's 4 great generals, and he went missing after making this forest his base. Our waifu says that she knew that Flio ended her sibling's subscription to life, but since he was a warrior, grieving him would be an insult to his memory, and when Fenris saw our MC's aura along with the unnecessary kindness that he displayed, she could never find it in her heart to do anything but love him. The waifu knights prove they have 0 points in stealth, as the appropriately dressed catgirl takes the chance to challenge Flio to a duel so she can send him and our waifu on a honeymoon in heaven. They go outside with the 2 challengers facing each other. The battle begins with the half-naked demon taking the high ground so she can cast 2 spells to eliminate Flio and Fenris at the same time. However, our overpowered MC easily destroys her magic attacks before countering with his own spell to bondage the curvaceous catgirl to leave her at his mercy. But since this is PG-13, she surrenders to him and is immediately released. The next day, Flio meets with the royal knights to apologize for hiding the identity of the demon that tried to turn them into a happy meal. Fenris says that she is no longer a part of the Dark Lord's army and just wants to live happily with her husband forever, but accepts that it is their duty to report her to the king. In a rare showing of intelligence, the waifu knights choose to side with the 2 people that could single-handedly wipe out their entire army, and decides to keep everything a secret because of the kindness that they have been shown. Everyone rushes outside to see that the fanservice kitty has returned with a horde of dragons and tells them to join the dark side, but Flio is excited to see the flying dinosaurs since in his old world they were rare. The Charizard uses flamethrower, but our MC counters with Thunderbolt to commit a great genocide on the oversized lizards, which forces the underdressed catgirl to make a strategic retreat. The muscle mommy wishes that she could defeat a dragon as well, so Flio tells her to throw her farm tool as hard as possible, and with some assistance from his magic, the hoe deep throats one of the unfortunate lizards, which levels up the athletic bad bee to the rank of a dragon slayer. All the other waifus begs our MC to carry them too, but sadly the dragons have gone too far for him to target them. Meanwhile, the Dark One has been watching everything from a distance and decides that it's time for him to meet Flio personally. The next day we find Flio putting up an alarm system so no more unwanted guests can surprise them at their home. Balarasa walks through the forest while being miserable that she couldn't kill Steel to get the title of Dragon Slayer and reclaim her family's position as one of the high nobles in the capital, when a man suddenly interrupts the Royal Knight's depression session to ask where he can meet with Fenris. Balarasa draws her people penetrator, then accuses the demon of serving the Dark Lord, but Gol says that he just wanted to visit his friend before leaving our brave waifu with a message for Fenris to have a talk with him. Our duo meets up with the Royal Knight where it's revealed that the demon she just met was the Dark One in disguise, which causes Balarasa to have a panic attack. A few hours later, Gol shows up at their house, so Flio invites him inside where our waifu knight meets with him once again. Then they have a meeting in the kitchen with Balarasa having spasms down below from the Dark Lord's aura. Gol explains that 500 years ago someone strong came to this land from another world, and after the humans rejected him he freed all the demons that the people oppressed, before being proclaimed as the first Dark Lord who started a great war to conquer everything in sight for his people. Flio questions if he has the same goal as his predecessors, and Gol confesses that after 12 generations of fighting, the war means nothing to him, but he cannot let our MC join the humans as that would tip the balance of power in their favor. Flio reveals that he doesn't plan on fighting for any side since he's not from this world and doesn't care about most of the people he has met. It's proven that real recognizes real as Gol decides that he won't give up on recruiting Flio but will leave for now, while our waifu knight passed out from reaching her peak during the conversation. The next day Balarasa awakens from happy hour to go downstairs and find that the Riz Lord is waiting for her to join him for some delicious breakfast, but she proves that the worst she can say isn't no. Gol uses the Jehovah Witness technique to follow the Royal Knight everywhere so he can convince her that once she goes black she'll never want to go back. At the capital, the king gets a report that a Dark Lord soldier has been spotted talking with Flio, so he believes that our MC has turned against them, but the princess tells her father to be patient and send a messenger to see what's really happening. The hero arrives in the throne room, then declares that he will take the soldiers to Flio's home and force him to join them. We find our overpowered protagonist working on items that he can sell to make some bread, but Fenris points out that Flio could have caught a bag by joining one of the armies, and our MC says that everyone around him are noobs, so it would be unfair for him to style on them. The waifu knights tell our duo that the hero has come to meet with Flio. The idiot threatens the strongest being on the planet in order to convince him to join the Royal Knight, and of course our MC refuses. The hero calls them all traitors and resolves to arrest everyone in sight, so Flio decides that he will just leave this kingdom rather than fight. All our waifus choose to follow him anywhere he goes. Then Flio uses teleporting magic on a mass scale to take everything that he cares about far outside of the king's or Dark Lord's reach, where our party can start a whole new life and live however they please. At the Dark Lord's castle we find him getting ready to visit Flio, but the best-dressed catgirl reveals that many of the demons have been wondering why he spends so much time among the enemy instead of attacking them, and Ghoul tells her that he is trying to convince our MC to join them before leaving his army behind. The Dark Lord arrives at Flio's old home but realizes that the hero has caused him to run away, which also took away his chance to get some noble wap from Balorosa, so he does the very reasonable thing and orders all his generals to launch an invasion into the human kingdom, while the hero uses his godlike power to run away like a little bitch. The Demon Lord's army makes steady progress, slaughtering all who are brave enough to face them in battle, while the king holds up in his castle where he is told that they have to use their last resort or face total annihilation. The monarch calls all his mages to use large-scale purification magic at the cost of their lives, but the demon lord waits outside the capital with the legendary catgirl, where he gets a report from his spies about what is happening inside and decides to pull his army outside the country for now. The king, with support from his sorcerers, casts the spell to prevent any demon from entering their region for 3 months. However, this act left most of their mages in a state where they won't be useful for a long time, while leaving their monarch bedridden. The princess takes command of the kingdom, and for her first act she strips away all privileges the hero had as guardian, because when the world needed him most he vanished. They throw the useless bastard onto the streets with his pet gold digger, and the only thing he can do is make idle threats that he no longer has the authority to carry out. Hours later, we find that the former hero has broken into the castle's treasury in an attempt to steal an item that will give him the power to defeat the Dark One and reclaim his lost title. He suddenly hears a voice asking to be let free from her prison as a hidden doorway reveals itself that leads to a people penetrator stuck deep inside a hard surface. The totally not evil voice tells him to test his pull-out game on the metal vessel in exchange for making his dreams come true, and of course the special grade human draws the sword, which immediately releases one of the strongest Jinn back into this world. Haya tells the former hero that he can wish for 3 things in return for her freedom, and the blonde bastard sends her to make our overpowered MC past tense instead of getting paper or smoking the Dark One. In the throne room of the castle, all the nobles suddenly get fancy chokers around their necks, and the princess sends the guards to the treasury before explaining that long ago a king wished for the demise of the demon king, but in return the Jinn used the collar of sacrifice to make half the people of this land a head shorter, so all the mages who remained came together to seal her under the castle until now. The oracle tells them that the only way to survive this is to seek out the true hero of this world, who has already been summoned. Everyone immediately knows that it's Flio, and the princess decides to go out to find him herself. We find our MC coming home from work to see Fenris happily waiting for him to return. Then he has dinner with all our waifus, where the muscle mommy decides to become a farmer, while the archer says she will raise horses to help make money, leaving the other 2 freeloaders to correctly feel useless, but Fenris tells them that they can help with chores, which puts them in a much better mood. The next day the waifu knights prove that they're S-tier wingmen by offering to take care of the house while our duo goes on the first date. The young couple goes out into the town to explore all the sceneries that it has to offer until they come across some jewelry that Fenris seems to like, so Flio wisely decides to buy it for her to show appreciation for everything she has done for him. In the night, we find the furry staring at the first gift that anyone has ever given her, while the rest of the waifus dies a little inside from jealousy. Hours later they go to bed and have a cuddling session where Flio doesn't seem to realize that he rolled a d20 to get the best waifu in existence. The next day RMC goes to the weapons shop to sell a shield he made from dragon scale, and the owner decides to become his primary buyer for all of his future products. The two waifus watches from the outside, where Fenris explains that Flio was once a merchant in his old world and Balarasa admits that she admires him. So the furry had to persuade the royal knight against such foolish notions before pointing out that goal has been trying to hit for a while. Our party begins walking through the town as Fenris congratulates Flio on making money moves, when the Jean suddenly appears behind of them. Sensing what is about to happen, our waifu takes one for the team in an attempt to protect the one she values most in this world. Flio tries to use healing magic, but it fails because she's already too far gone, while Haya begins attacking our party with all the magic she has, but none of her spells can break through the barrier. The overpowered protagonist gains access to all the Jin spells and uses his newfound abilities to pull a redo of healer around Fenris to rewind all the damage she took. Flio goes over to give the Jean a free facelift before he makes her cosplay as a cockroach. Haya tries to put up a no-no square, but she gets a taste of equality as Flio gives his punching bag the Broly treatment that he follows up with a flawless Shoryuken. Fenris wakes up from her coma to see that Flio's hands are rated E for everyone that forks around can find out, and reaches her peak from watching him distribute justice on the Jean. RMC gets ready to end this fight while Haya begs him for mercy, however that word is no longer in his repertoire. Fenris interrupts them to stop Flio from doing something that he will regret for the rest of his life, and after noticing that she is alright, RMC embraces his wife while leaving the Black Air Force energy behind. The victim awakens from sleep mode and immediately apologizes for everything she has done, but realizes that RMC has healed all her wounds. Flio reveals that he took a look into her thought box to see the reason why she attacked them, then admits that they can't return her to the castle because someone could just release her once again. He tells Haya that she must swear to no longer harm humans in order to gain her freedom. Seeing that RMC has now truly forgiven her for all that she has done, Haya joins our harem of waifus while promising to follow Flio to the ends of the earth so she can witness everything that he will accomplish. However, when she remembers the ass-beating RMC dished out, the Jean reaches the climax of happiness. Fenris realizes that Haya is a freak and shuts it down immediately, while Flio decides to manipulate time to fix the town that they destroyed, but the Jean tells him to never use that type of magic again because using it incorrectly could lead to the end of the world, so he decides to just activate the repair spell to restore the things they demolished. Our party returns home, where Haya is introduced to the rest of the waifus who are terrified to be living in the same space as her, but after some assurances from Balarasa, the Jean is brought to their room. In the night, we find our duo getting ready to go to bed, where Fenris puts him in the missionary position, and questions if Flio is going to leave them behind to return to his original world since he now has the power to do so. But RMC tells the furry that his old home was a cruel place for anyone who wasn't born human, so he doesn't want to go back there. In a rare showing of intelligence, Flio asks Fenris to officially become his wife because he could never imagine living anywhere without her, and of course she accepts. They begin the first step of the baby-making technique, but right as things are about to get good, our couple realizes that Haya has been watching them from the cup corner since she must witness everything that Flio does, which makes Fenris furious that she didn't get her back blown out, while the other waifus are relieved that they didn't have to listen to a moaning session throughout the night. Inside the castle, the guards try their best to get to the blonde bastard, while the gold digger is worried because they're going to be executed for treason. Another voice begins talking to the former hero, who takes the form of Dark Mist before possessing the well-endowed woman's body to use as her own. Damelina's class changes into a stripper mage and decides to thank her savior by transforming him into a creature powerful enough to destroy all the nobles that sealed her away. Then she rides him throughout the castle until they come upon a teleportation circle that the mage chooses to follow to see where it goes. The princess appears close to Flio's location, but all the mages tell her that they don't have enough strength to go any further as the collars of sacrifice are suddenly broken to signal the Jin's defeat. Then the queen enters the city and tries desperately to look for RMC, but has no luck in finding him. Meanwhile, at the harem house, all the waifus sit to devour some of Fenrir's glorious cooking, where Haya decides that she can use magic to take care of all the chores, leaving the rest of the freeloaders depressed because they are now truly useless. A few hours later, we find the muscle mommy working the fields along with some help from the rabbit bear thing, while the archer feeds the kinky horses who are getting a taste of paradise, but she suddenly hears the muscle mommy screaming because a shiny rapidash is destroying her farm. It uses tackle on them, however the mage comes in clutch with protect and Balarasa decides to use sword dance on the unfortunate creature, but the archer realizes that it's the Ursuluna that has been freaking out the horsey, so she grabs a rope in order to bondage the wild animal and bring its rampage to an end. At the city, we see our newlyweds walking the streets together until Flio reaches the weapons shop so he can make money moves. A dark cloud suddenly overshadows the entire town as Damolinas catches up with the princess while riding the tuckerfied former hero and begins destroying the city. She finds the monarch in the crowd surrounded by all her protectors, then jumps over to give the guards a magical blowjob. But one soldier stands strong between the princess and certain demise as the sorcerer begins to relish in her vengeance. Flio comes outside being very confused and meets up with Haya, who also sensed the presence of a great evil from far away. She explains that Damolinas was once the most powerful dark magician in the world until the hero of her age managed to put an end to the tyranny. But although Damolina's body was destroyed, the soul still survived, so they used the magic sealed inside Haya's sword to trap the sorcerer in a prison realm for all eternity. Flio gives the Jinn permission to use her full strength to defeat his enemies, and she stops the princess from receiving an unwanted foot job. Damolinas is confused that the Jinn is saving the people that imprisoned them, but Haya reveals that she has sworn her life to a master and will do everything to protect this town that he has made his new home. The stripper mage unleashes Thunderbolt and the Jinn uses Protect to block it, so Damolinas decides to launch the former hero at them while using magic to attack from behind, but not even this has any effect on Haya. Seeing that she's vastly outclassed, the sorceress uses her most powerful incantation to buff the former hero until it's almost impossible for anyone to stop him. The princess is paralyzed by fear as she faces her impending doom, but the spell is suddenly broken to return everything to how it once was, as it's revealed that Flio was the one to undo Damolinas' magic because the fight was getting out of control, and Haya apologizes to her trainer for failing him. Then she proceeds to put the stripper mage into a Pokeball before giving Damolinas the Gok treatment to seal the sorceress deep inside herself. The blonde bastard gets packed into a cart to be sent back to jail, while the princess finally meets with our MC and thanks him for all the good that he has done for her kingdom. She offers him the newly vacated position of hero so he can become the new guardian of her country, but of course Flio refuses because he already has the life that most people would kill for. Our party returns home, where the waifu knights reveal that they plan on buying some land around the house so they can get a bigger farm along with more space to raise the spirit horses that Balarasa will catch. Flio offers to finance the charges for them, but they insist that their savings will be able to cover it until our MC does some quick maths to explain that they're all brokies who are nowhere close to escaping the Matrix. Then everybody comes to an understanding that Flio will pay for the expenses and some of the profits will be paid back to him as rent. Our party begins Operation Help the Freeloaders, where we find out that the mage will soon be teaching students at Hogwarts, and Flio gets the idea to use spells on the farm to get better goods. However, the muscle mommy is skeptical because she doesn't believe that there's a better way to farm than hard work, but the Dom mom relents and decides to test it on a small part of the fields to see what will happen. They all make steady progress toward their goals while our duo watches from the sidelines. Flio presents his wife with a wedding ring which proves his undying love for her, and Fenris embraces her lover while overwhelmed by pure unadulterated happiness. Meanwhile, a spy of the Dark Lord's army stands outside of the town and admires our MC's barrier. At the Demon King's castle, we find the underclothes Catgirl reporting to Goal. She tells him that he should stop diverting resources to look for Flio and restart the invasion on the human kingdom, since they can easily push through the purification spell to take the capital. But the Dark Lord reminds her that if RMC was to side against them in this war, he could do a squad wipe on their entire race, so any victory would be pointless until they can determine where Flio stands. The legendary Catgirl admits that his army is beginning to lose faith in his rule, then Goal goes over to give her a well-deserved head pat and reveals that he sees no point in winning this war if it means dooming his people, as a sneaky succubus eavesdrop on their conversation from the shadows. The demon reports all she heard to Goal's brother, and Uegard begins throwing a tantrum because he thinks his sibling is becoming weak, while the messenger takes all the abuse that he dishes out, though she does seem to enjoy it. Then the great demon decides that he will take the throne for himself to show the world how a true Dark Lord should act. At the royal capital, we find the former hero locked inside a dungeon with his ride or die in the cell next to him, but the captives soon manage to pull off a prison break and make their way back to the treasury to steal enough gold to live a life of luxury. They somehow manage to escape from the castle, but many guards are looking for them, so the fugitives employ the highly effective method of hiding in a bush. The former hero takes out a treasure chest he stole and finds a magical shovel inside as the guards quickly close in on their location. But when they arrive, our escape artists are already gone because the fugitives penetrated the ground to create a deep hole which now doubles as their new prison. Dumb and Dumber tries their best to climb out of the cavern, and the well-endowed woman finally reaches the top, but her assets begins working against her. The blonde bastard looks up into unfiltered paradise, then loses his grip for a moment to fall back to the bottom of the pit. A few hours later, we find some adventurers chasing after our escapees, and the bush hiding method comes in clutch once again. His ride or die cries because her food meter is empty, so the former hero gives her the last of their rations, then thanks her for sticking with him for all this time. But the curvy woman says that she is also a wanted criminal now, and when he broke them out of the dungeon, her heart started to only beat for him. They get ready to leave when a spider wanders over to them and spits sticky white fluid all over the duo as the kinky demon comes over to claim them as a sacrifice for her master. In the night, Balarasa has a dream that she is marrying the Dark One and has become queen over all demonkind. She begins freaking out while all her new subjects celebrate the union, but right as things are about to get good, she awakens from her fantasy screaming, which also rouses the other waifus trying to get some rest. The next day, Fenris makes some cupcakes with the royal knight where she tells our waifu about her nightmares. The demon gets excited because in their culture dreams represent a person's deepest desires, but Balarasa believes that Goal has no interest in starting a relationship with her. Then all the other waifus assemble and starts pointing out that the Dark Lord has been trying to hit since the first time he laid eyes on her. They begin questioning Fenris on how she fell in love with Flio, and our waifu admits that she admired his kind nature but thought that it was also a weakness that she needed to protect him from. However, after spending time together, Fenris realized that they could both be kind together while still remaining strong. Flio comes into the kitchen feeling embarrassed. Then our young couple takes a walk through the town where they see that even this far away from the war, many of the stores are closing down because both trade and supplies are at an all-time low. Our duo decides to get some dinner when their third wheel suddenly spawns outside of the void to tell them that thanks to their training they raised her rank at the Adventurers Guild and offers to buy them lunch, which greatly disappoints Fenris. Haya suddenly joins the party to tell them that a powerful demon is on his way as Goal arrives in the town. They go inside the restaurant where the Dark Lord immediately begins rizzing up the waifu knight, and says that after studying this kingdom's culture to discover their weaknesses, he has come to like some of their creations. Balarasa accuses the Demon King of only caring about human ways to better learn how to conquer them, and Goal admits that it is true since although there is no way for their people to ever live in peace, he can't just allow the demon race to be slaughtered. Flio is confused since him and Fenris never had an issue, so Haya explains that regular demons emit a poisonous aura that would smoke any humans who exist around them, and this makes coexistence impossible. Then Goal apologizes for ruining their dinner before bidding them farewell. Flio walks home while realizing that although there are no workers, that doesn't get paid. This world suffers from an endless loop of war between humans and demons without the possibility of peace until one race is completely wiped out. RMC is overcome by hopelessness, so he grabs a hold of paradise, then embraces his wife until the big sad passes and all the joy returns to him once again. At the Queen's castle, the counselors have finished their investigation into Flio and discover the very obvious fact that the man whom the kidnapping king banished to the forest of demons is also the adventurer who suddenly appeared out of nowhere to cleanse said forest and made it his new home for a while. The princess is horrified by this discovery but braces herself to atone for the sins of her idiotic father. The next day, as our party is enjoying a delicious meal made by the master chef, they suddenly hear a knock at the door and see that the princess has come to meet with them. They invite her inside, but the monarch asks for privacy to discuss something important with RMC, so everyone leaves the room except for the best girl. The princess stands up to make a formal apology on behalf of the entire kingdom for how they treated him in the past, but Flio tells her that it was not needed since what her father did led to him finding the perfect life. The monarch reveals that this was not the only reason she came, before showing him a map that outlines all the positions of her army and the cities they defend, and begs Flio to save the ones who has no protectors. Fenris rages at her for persisting and trying to turn RMC into their new hero after attempting to smoke him, but the princess explains that at the moment she is only the acting ruler and will be replaced once her father awakens unless she gains enough support by proving to the people that there is a better choice. Then she plans on forcing the king to step down and answer for his crimes. Flio realizes that all the towns that she wishes him to guard are outside of the war zone, so he would not be taking any sides if he chose to defend them, and RMC tells the princess that he will think about it. In the night, the couple talks about what they'll do about the request, when Flio says that he wants their children to grow up in a peaceful world with both humans and demons, even if it seems impossible. Then Fenris tells her husband that she will support him in anything he chooses to do. At the royal capital, the princess gets a report about a mysterious figure going around protecting towns from danger and giving all the credit to the acting monarch. We find a city being attacked by the demons who serves Uegard as our duo comes in clutch to save their lives. The army tries to break through the barrier while Flio tells them that if they retreat no one will be harmed, but a Cyclops appears on the battlefield and notices that Fenris is fighting with a human. He says that her brother was a useless coward who never deserved his place by the Dark Lord's side, and our waifu decides that she's going to give him an ass beating that no one will soon forget. Fenris crosses the barrier and starts the fight by using her superior speed to land many attacks while remaining undamaged. Then she takes the high ground to use the Flying Thunder God to switch places with her opponent. The ogre throws his great club at our waifu, but Fenris swaps places again to let him take the blow before she plants some trees in his limbs to bring this fight to an end. Seeing that their general is outmatched, the army attempts to gangbang Fenris until Flio steps in to give all of them a lesson in BDSM. RMC uses heal on the ogre before telling him to leave this town or he'll be forced to remove them permanently, and knowing that they stand no chance against this monster, the army decides to withdraw. The townsfolk come over to thank their saviors for the help, and they give all the credit to the princess, then leaves to go off to the next city, while Gol watches his action from above to make sure that all his people are safe, but he gets a report that his brother has now declared himself king, and the Dark Lord rushes off to confront the usurper. At the Demon Lord's castle, we find Uegard on the throne along with the former hero and his ride or die in a sacrificial circle that will boost the false king's power. The Catgirl tries to convince the Infernal Four to turn against him, but the Great Demons refuses because they already swore to only be a witness for the duel between siblings and not interfere, since the ruler should always be the strongest among them. All the demons converge in the throne room where Uegard is now calling his office. The skimpy Catgirl launches a surprise attack, but it has no effect on him, and she is gifted a tummy tuck for her efforts. One of the claws floats up for a hidden assault, however that also failed as she goes into sleep mode while assuming the good girl position. The spy along with Gol arrives inside the castle, and the Dark Lord asks what he's done to turn his most loyal officers against him. They explain that Gol abandoned them to go beg a human to join their side while withdrawing the army on the brink of victory instead of sacrificing a few soldiers to take the royal capital of the kingdom. The Dark Lord activates the king's ring immense power to take off the symbol of rulership and tosses it to his brother, while saying that if the demon race have truly lost faith in him after so much time, then he has no right to the throne. Uegard shouts that they must have a duel and immediately gets one-shot by the former king of all demonkind. Then all the generals begins begging him to stay, as the greatest Dark Lord to ever live leaves his crown behind. During the confusion, the blonde bastard and his ride or die makes a great escape from the castle after stealing all the jewels they can find, so they can sell it and gain wealth beyond their wildest dreams. The next day, Gol and the cat waifu goes to Flio's home to tell them what happened, then ask if they could live with him for a while, but RMC says that he has to make sure it's alright with the other residents first. Balarasa enters the room at the worst time possible and gets a panic attack from all the information that's being thrown at her. Everyone is gathered in the dining room and Gol tells them that he has been kicked out of the demon realm, so there's nowhere else to go, before promising that he will not bring harm to the household. All the harem agrees that they are okay with him staying since he has been there many times before, but Balarasa objects because Gol started an unprovoked invasion against her kingdom. Then Fenris along with the rabbit bear thing hits her with the cuteness overload to change the waifu knight's mind. A few hours later, we find the muscle mommy working on her farm when Gol comes over to see if she needs help, but the Dom mom says no, so he heads over to the archer who also wants to work on her project alone. Flio takes the former demon lord to his storerooms and shows him all the items he made to sell to adventurers, while Eulimenes and Fenris watches from the outside, where they notice that Gol is genuinely happy. In the night, they sit around a campfire and everyone is enjoying each other's company while eating delicious food, but the waifu knight who sits apart from them. Later on, while everyone is sleeping, we find Balarasa standing on the porch by herself, when our dream team comes to join her because they're worried about how she has been acting. The waifu knight reveals that she has been bracing herself to leave because she contributes nothing special to the home, and although Balarasa accepts that Gol is no longer the Dark Lord, the royal knight can't imagine living peacefully with him because his army is responsible for many of her fellow soldiers becoming past tense. Flio tells her that he doesn't expect any humans to be comfortable with staying around demons since the hatred they have towards each other is rooted deep in their history, but with time he hoped that everyone will get past it. Then Fenris points out that she was also a high-ranking demon who was planning on making them a DoorDash order for her brother when they first met, but over these months they have come to be close friends who has learned many things from each other. The next day, Balarasa confronts two of the most powerful demons on the planet and tells them that she will be watching to make sure that they don't hurt anybody, and Gol goes over to the waifu knights to thank her for accepting them as roommates, before she goes off with the rabbit bear thing to hunt some monsters. At the Demon King's castle, we see Uegard being very frustrated because no matter how hard they push, the army can't seem to bypass the humans' traps to gain any territories. Then the Dark Lord commands the kinky demon to gather all soldiers for one big attack as he leaves the throne room. The generals agrees that Gol would never make such simple mistakes and admits that the army is going to collapse at any moment, but the succubus returns from her flight to reveal that she has a plan to restore their morale. We go over to our favorite couple and finds that Fenris is overjoyed because she won tickets for a famous hot spring until they tell our waifu that it's a pass which requires 3 or more people to be valid. At the resort, everyone is excited to be on this vacation when the archer tells them that there is a pool here that is famous for fertility, and this catches Fenris' attention. They arrive at the entrance and are greeted by the workers who gives them a change of clothes, but our waifu sneaks over to the staff to get the location of the baby-making hot spring. Then the worker wishes Fenris luck on her quest. The waifu knights head inside to change, where they run into Uegard disguised in his human form along with the succubus, who has to remind the Dark Lord that they are here so the officers can relax and regain faith in him. All our friendly demons recognize the Dark Lord's party immediately, but Fenris advises them to remain hidden because if her plans are ruined, she will make sure they go to hell screaming for mercy and will receive none. Our family changes into the formal clothes, then decides that it's best to split up since everyone has their own goal that they wish to accomplish, and Haya tries to tag along with Flio but is kindly persuaded to do otherwise. The Jinn goes into her inner mind to meet with Damelina's and tells her that because she couldn't watch our MC add the filling to Fenrir's donut, she will have to use her to explore human reproduction instead. The stripper mage begins freaking out and brings up the point that they're both women, but Haya shows her the black mamba, then reveals that magic can accomplish anything if the mind is willing to imagine it. However, Damelina's thankfully kicks the Jinn out of her own consciousness, and Haya decides that she will need consent to make the experiment easier. We go over to the erotic section of the resort and finds the archer getting ready to go inside, but the Jinn appears to join her. Then after a few moments of embarrassment they both enter the kink museum together. Our young couple makes their way to the fertility baths but notices that it's separated by gender, where Flio promises to plan a trip with just the two of them for their honeymoon in the future. However, Fenris is only thinking about the kitten petting session that she'll be receiving tonight. Meanwhile at the cafe we find the rest of our party hanging out and Gol continues to rizz up Balarasa, which pisses off the overdressed cat girl. The demon goes to hang out with Muscle Mommy, leaving the two women to talk alone for the first time, and during their conversation the waifu knight comes to the realization the Illiminas is also in love with Gol. Inside a room Uegard and his officers feast like kings, but says awful things about the human food to deny that it's the best thing they've ever ate. The Dark Lord asks for entertainment, so the kinky demon does a TikTok dance, then gets appropriately disciplined for such atrocities. Two of the commanders starts doing a skit together, but it quickly turns into actual violence. At the same time, the unluckiest duo in existence enters the resort and decides to use the gem they stole to pay for a day of relaxation. However, the rock suddenly begins absorbing demonic energy as the two officers continue their brawl to see who is stronger. The crystal reaches its climax and travels deep inside the former hero to transform him into a kaiju. The tailed beast starts attacking the building relentlessly, forcing everyone inside to start evacuating, and right as the tower is about to collapse, Flio comes in clutch to keep it in place, but reveals that he must keep this stance to maintain the spell, so Fenris goes to see what's happening. Our party sees the disturbance and Illiminas notices that the creature is wearing a miasma-amplifying gem which normally boosts the power of a demon but would drive a human to insanity. The waifu knights rush off to help, but Gol tells them that they should remain here since Flio can easily take care of this problem. However, Balarasa says she will not let our MC face all adversities by himself after he has done so much to help the world be a better place, and the women points out that although they are not strong, there are still things even weaklings can do to lend support in a disaster. Gol decides that they should help stop this monster, and Illiminas begins reaching her peak from being in the Riz Lord's aura. Then he teleports on the building with Fenris close behind. The generals notice their old master is back and Uegard joins him on the roof to get his revenge. He jumps on the tail beast to use it as his weapon to defeat his brother, but no matter how hard the Dark Lord tries, Gol is still holding his own. Illiminas points out that the humans are powering the kaiju, so Fenris uses Flash Step to get in close to give the former hero the Gara treatment to free him from the crystal, while Gol comes in clutch by stopping them from painting the floor. The two siblings face each other with Uegard going on the offense while Gol chooses to dodge or deflect all his attacks until he casts full counter to reflect all the blows he blocked back on his brother. The Demon Lord goes all out and gains a decisive advantage over his sibling, which forces Gol to use the same technique that he made for their father to bring this battle to an end, as all of Uegard's power have now been sealed to make him no stronger than a human. Seeing an opportunity, all the staff use talismans to activate the magic hidden in the robes to restrain all the troublemakers in the area before making the demons blast off again. We find Fenris giving the blonde bastard a free facelift until Balarasa comes over to say that Flio is at the entrance and is casting a spell to fully repair the building. The entire staff thanks our party for saving their establishment, then they all go to the hot springs to relax. Euliminus tries the bath for the first time and finds it very relaxing, though she notices that her rival has the body of a goddess. Haya and the archer watches them from afar, but Damalinas asks her to leave the female section since she can grow a third leg. However, the djinn tells her to leave for now, since later in the night they will be spending a lot of time together. The muscle mommy wonders why the two women were absent at the fight, and Haya spills the tea to reveal the archer as a freak in the sheets. Then they try to find out just how far her kinks go. Flio and Gol sit in the hot spring together, where the demon reveals that he always thought that befriending RMC would be the first step in breaching the barrier between their races, but Flio says that even with his godlike powers there are no spells to stop the hatred rooted deep within people's hearts, and the two men decide that over time they will build a bridge so both sides can meet in the middle. Hours later, while everyone is exploring dreamland, the young couple meets with each other under the moonlight. Fenris jumps on her husband and their lips begin to embrace as Flio lowers her to the floor so they can make sweet love to each other for the first time. The next day, everyone notices that our waifu is in a very good mood and realizes what must have happened. Then our party exits the resort to return home to live a life surrounded by the people who they cherish most in this world. At the royal capital, the Queen of the Kingdom is holding her coronation ceremony, but it's revealed that her father has gone into hiding instead of facing his crimes. Meanwhile, the former hero continues to run from the law and hopes to one day reclaim his lost title.
Like for a cat girl, subscribe for a waifu, and remember to stay swifty.